Think about the person who hit you the hardest, not the one who was kindest to you, the one who felt like electricity, the one you couldn't stop thinking about, even when it made no sense, even when your friends told you to walk away. You thought you knew them. You thought you understood what made them special. You thought the feeling between you was real. But what if the person you fell in love with wasn't actually them? What if the most powerful romantic experiences of your life had less to do with who was standing in front of you, and almost everything to do with what was already inside you? You've probably heard someone say, maybe you've said it yourself, "I just knew. From the moment I met them, something clicked. It felt like I'd known them my entire life." That feeling is real, but what it means might not be what you think, because that feeling of instant recognition, that overwhelming sense of familiarity, it's not evidence that you've found the one. It's evidence that your unconscious has found a match. Not a match for what you need, but a match for what you already know. The unconscious doesn't fall in love with strangers. It falls in love with patterns, and the pattern it's most drawn to is the one it learned first, the emotional blueprint that was set in your earliest relationships, long before you had words for it. If warmth was always followed by withdrawal, your nervous system learned that love feels like reaching. If attention was conditional, your nervous system learned that love must be earned. If presence was unpredictable, your nervous system learned that love feels like waiting. And when someone comes along who triggers that same emotional rhythm, not because they're right for you, but because they feel familiar to you, your entire system lights up. Chemistry, sparks, recognition. But you're not recognizing them. You're recognizing the pattern. Jung called this projection, and it's one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Projection is when you take something that lives inside your own psyche, an image, a feeling, an unmet need, and without realizing it, you lay it on top of someone else. You see them not as they are, but through the filter of what you need them to be. In romance, projection does something specific. It takes the template of love you formed in childhood, all the unfinished business, all the unmet longing, and it wraps it around the person standing in front of you. And suddenly, they're not just a person, they're the answer. They're the one who can finally give you what you've been waiting for. The problem isn't that projection exists. Everyone projects. It's one of the most basic things the human psyche does. The problem is that when projection is unconscious, when you don't know you're doing it, you genuinely believe you're seeing the other person clearly, and you're not. You're seeing a composite. Part of them is real. Part of them is borrowed from your parents, from your earliest attachments, from the version of love that was imprinted on you before you could choose it. This is why the most intense relationships are often the most unstable. The intensity isn't proportional to how good the relationship is. It's proportional to how much unconscious material you've projected onto the other person. The bigger the projection, the bigger the fall when reality breaks through. And reality always breaks through. Maybe it's 3 months in, maybe it's a year, but there's always a moment when the real person starts showing through the projection. And what follows isn't disappointment, it's disorientation. Because the person you fell in love with was partly fictional, and the person standing in their place feels like a stranger, This is the cycle that drives serial heartbreak. Not bad luck, not choosing wrong. The unconscious projects, the projection collapses, the relationship ends, and then the unconscious finds a new screen and starts the whole film again. Jung said something striking about this. We don't see people as they are. We see people as we are. And until we become conscious of what we're projecting, we keep mistaking our own inner world for the person in front of us. So how do you stop projecting? You can't. Not entirely. Projection is as natural as breathing. What you can do is start catching it. Start noticing the difference between what's actually there and what you've layered on top. The first sign that you're projecting is intensity that doesn't match reality. If you've known someone for 2 weeks and you feel like you'd fall apart without them, that's not love. That's the unconscious recognizing its own template and locking on. The feeling is real, but the story you're building around it is projection. The second sign is idealization. If the person you're falling for seems to have no flaws, or if their flaws feel romantic rather than concerning, you're not seeing them. You're seeing the projection. Real people are complicated from the start. If the early version feels perfect, that's the filter talking. And the third sign, maybe the most important one, is the question you're afraid to ask. What do I actually need this person to give me? Not what do they offer. What do I need from them? Because the answer to that question is usually the thing you haven't learned to give yourself. The projection starts to dissolve the moment you own the need behind it. When you stop asking the other person to complete a story that started decades before you met them. When you start recognizing the longing I feel isn't for this person, it's for something in me that was never fully seen, never fully met. And the work isn't to find someone who finally gives it to me. The work is to become the person who no longer needs it from someone else. That doesn't mean you stop falling in love. It means you start falling in love with your eyes open. If you want to start catching your own projections, try these 3 questions. Journal on them, or just let them sit. 1. Think about the person you felt most intensely about. Not the healthiest relationship, the most intense. What quality in them felt magnetic? Now ask, where in your early life was that quality missing? The thing you were drawn to in them might be the thing you never got from the person who should have given it first. 2. When a relationship starts to feel less exciting, when the early intensity fades, do you lose interest? If the answer is yes, that's a signal. You might be addicted to the projection, not the person, because real relationships get quieter over time. The question is whether you can stay when the film stops playing. 3. What would it feel like to be with someone who doesn't trigger you? Not boring, genuinely steady. If that thought makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself, what am I mistaking for chemistry that might actually be anxiety? You're not a bad judge of character. You're not broken. You're doing what every human being does, seeing the world through the lens of your own unfinished story. The projection isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. Every time you fall hard for someone, your unconscious is showing you exactly what it needs, not from them, but from you. The relationships that last aren't the ones where the projection was strongest. They're the ones where 2 people had the courage to see each other clearly and stay anyway. Next week, we're going deeper into why that's so hard why you feel like a fraud even when you're succeeding, and how imposter syndrome connects to everything we've been exploring. That's coming up. This is the depth work.